let's step away from our thoughts and our emotions and the busyness and the noise and just breathe and go within and listen to that inner voice.
Hi everyone, it's Eliza here, and today I'm with Steve Centra. So Steve, can you please introduce everyone to who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Eliza. Thank you for the opportunity. I was a teacher for 32 years and a school principal for around 10, I suppose, of those years, and now I've launched into a new career: life coach, a leadership architect, mentor to young people, and sort of consultant. So that's the area I'm moving into.
And what drew you towards this? So I remember you mentioning to me that adolescent mental health is something that you're really passionate about. Can you tell us more how that has affected your transition into as a school principal into as a life coach now?
Yeah, I guess with my experience, I've noticed a lot of kids in my years of teaching as being lost and not really understanding who they are, and I think that lostness turns into mental health issues. And the education system is rather rigid in lots of ways, and so there's restrictions on how much you can do. So I guess I want to work back in schools with young people, but I don't want to be sort of working with those rigid parameters that education can define. Obviously there's still parameters I need to work within, but I want to talk sort of heart to heart with kids about who they are and what they want out of life, beyond what the system is telling them or requiring of them. So really to get to their own heart and to the heart of the matter, and to listen to their inner voice and to understand themselves and where they're at, and to choose their own path as opposed to being dictated to by so many pressures that they're under. And they are under a lot of pressure from parents, from schools, from society, from their peers, and it weighs heavily on them. And we need to liberate our kids of this heaviness, this weight that we put on them, and go just breathe and be you. And then from that point you'll figure out the direction you want to take, and you can wade through all that, and not eliminate the mental health issues, but I think drastically reduce those issues, because you get in touch with who you truly are.
Do you think the main reason why there are mental health issues in adolescents is because of that disconnect with who they are, or is that something else also in there?
Yeah, look, I think, and I don't want to oversimplify it, there's a lot more to it, and we can talk about this for days, but I think it's connection. That's at the heart of it. And with technology the way it is, with the external world that they are a part of, they're losing this connection. We're sitting in this beautiful park, we're connecting with the earth, we're connecting with each other. That's what our life should be, and I see these kids in my class who are not doing this. I used to take my kids for a walk in the park, and they'd come back and go, "Oh wow!" So we used to get our shoes off in the park, and
Yeah,
we used to
take
just
my shoes off.
do it, and we'd walk, and some of them would sit under a tree. I said, "No, come out and get some sunshine, and let's get out of the classroom and let's just connect." And it's just about connection, and if we can do that, we can just allow kids to breathe into who they are and not be just always trying to meet expectations, and we just want them to connect to themselves. In my classes last year, we did a lot of stuff on just listening to inner voice, and the boys initially just sort of looked at me and thought, "Who's this crazy man?" And
It's a very new concept for them.
yeah. and because they're listening to so many other voices, and I said, "Look, let's just let go of all those noises and the busyness, and that step away from the vortex that sucks us in, and go within and just listen to that inner voice." And there's so many names we can give that. Is it our intuition? I was in a Catholic school. Is it the Holy Spirit? Whatever label you want to give it. They haven't learned to listen to it, and so many of them then said at the end of the year, I've learned to listen to my inner voice. I've learned to go within, and through meditation, I've been able to figure out who I am and just to be calm. And it's made a significant difference. And it's really simple stuff, Eliza. Like this is not mind-blowing stuff, really. And the Eastern, traditions have been doing this for thousands of years. We in the West are a bit slow to catch on. I think we're getting there, and there's certain people leading the way, but it's as simple as let's step away from our thoughts and our emotions and the busyness and the noise, and just breathe and go within and listen to that inner voice. It's a nice, safe and comforting place to be that I don't think a lot of our kids have connected with ever before. One boy in my class, he said, "Oh, I don't really like meditation." So I said, "Why is that, Dylan?" He says, "Because I feel like I'm not productive." And that's how we've trained or programmed our kids. And that was me with my father. You know, don't sit on your bum, get out there and mow the lawns or do something. And so when this boy, and he was highly intelligent, but he felt when he was meditating he wasn't being productive. Now the research is very, very clear that if you take the moment to meditate, to be calm and to relax, then your brain will be operating better anyway. And so I said to him, "Look, I get it. Next time you have an exam, just do a quick meditation beforehand and see if it affects your results." And he didn't tell me the result, but he said, "Look, I was much better in that exam because I did a little meditation, like you said. And I went in, I was calm, I was relaxed, and I was clearer in the head, and I can remember this stuff, you know." And I said, "Well, if you're running a marathon and your muscles are really sore, you've got to rest, you know. We don't just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until the muscle breaks down or we injure ourselves." Our brains are the same. These kids, they are fatigued, you know. Their brains are fatigued. They're not sleeping well. They're on technology. I don't want to sound like an old fart who's saying, "Oh, turn off your computer." It's not that at all, but they are spending a lot of time on technology, which is disconnecting, but they're also doing it late at night. So they're not sleeping well because of blue light toxicity. And I know when I was a principal, I used to do emails before I went to bed sometimes. Then I wouldn't sleep. If I didn't do emails before bed, I would sleep fine. So, you know, there's technology, there's poor diet, there's poor sleep, there's a lack of exercise because their gaming is their gaming time, you know, it's their sport. So there's lots of factors that are contributing to their mental health, and we've got to do it better. And that's what this Reconnect project is that I've developed, is about just realising that we've forgotten how to connect with ourselves, we've forgotten how to connect with each other. Jump on a train in Sydney and go to work and watch everybody on their phones, and you just want to say, you know, let's have a conversation. They don't do it, you know, no one wants to do that anymore. And so our lifestyle is conducive to poor mental health, I think. You know, we've got to do it differently. We're learning that, and we keep talking about mental health and coming up with strategies, but it's not going away. And you know, statistics show that it's one of the biggest, like suicide is one of the highest causes of death amongst young men. You know, it's not going away because we keep putting band-aids on it or throwing quick fixes. I love the phrase "Are you okay?" but it falls short of the mark. You know, yeah, are you okay? Ask the question, but everyone's going to answer, yeah, I'm good, thanks, and all right, tick, let's move on. No, let's sit in a park like this and have a really good conversation and tune into our bodies, our intuition, into our heart, and really know if a person is okay, and be present to them, not just an off-the-cuff question, are you okay? We've got to go deeper than that. We've got to really connect strongly.
So how would you advise others who wants to help someone who may be struggling with mental health? How should they approach the situation? How could they help someone else?
I watched a video recently, Eliza, that talks about meditation a lot, and there's a woman on there who develops a robot, and she's an expert in AI, and this robot that she's created is being programmed to ask a person how they are. Now, the point she's making is that this robot doesn't judge. This robot doesn't criticize or make assumptions, or jump to any conclusions. There's no emotion there. It's just, you know, tell me how you're feeling. When we ask a person how they're feeling, or especially with men, to be honest, you know, not so much with the younger generation, but with my generation perhaps. Oh, yeah, you'll be okay. Let's just have a beer and we'll have a chat, and you'll be fine. Because a lot of our conversations is this sort of overlay of judgment, or, you know, as a man, look, if you're not coping, you just need to harden up a little bit, you know, and that's a culture that's shifting significantly. It's about connecting with people in a way that is non-judgmental, non-critical. It's state unconditionality. That's not a word, is it? But
I'm not sure.
it works. But that state of being unconditional in your love, that's what we need with each other. That says to you, if you've got issues, that you can talk to me about anything, and I'm not going to sit here and judge you or criticise. So being unconditionally loving and totally present to someone creates a space where you can be you entirely without any pressure to be anything else. And that's what we need to do with our young people at schools. You know, I've had kids in my schools when I was principal. Teachers would say, "Oh, you've got to get rid of that kid. You know, you've got to spelling, get rid of him." I kept saying, "Look, you know, their behaviour tells a story. This is not personal. There's stuff going on underneath that is driving this process." And I had this young man in my office who was as tall as me. It was a pretty tense moment there where he got up and clenched fists, was going to hit something, and it was either going to be the window or me or something. And this kid was just so full of pain, hatred for himself. You know, he hated who he was. For him, we needed to be totally present to him and unconditionally loving. And so, okay, let's walk together.
So how can people understand themselves better in order to rid themselves out of a place of pain and suffering, and also to uncover their intuition more clearly? Because I feel like sometimes people might be a little bit lost in hearing that intuition within themselves. Do you have any advice for that?
That's a really good question. Two things. I think with the intuition and the inner voice, we have to give ourselves the opportunity first, and this is what people struggle with. You know, if I'm sitting here silent for 20 minutes, then I could be doing stuff. I could be getting on top of my emails, or I could be mowing the lawns, or I could be, you know, and so we struggle to just sit in silence, or we find, you know, a medication that might stop us from feeling, might numb that so we don't have to deal with it, or we just shove it down and it comes out as, you know, heavy drinking or drugs or violence or aggression, or just numbing ourselves. Giving yourself time and space to go within and listen to the voice, but then to be courageous enough to hear the message or to feel the pain. And I think a lot of us have that, some degree of pain deep down within. It might be just pain associated with, you know, the fear of not being enough, or the fear of not making it in this world, or being successful, or being a good parent or partner or whatever. So through fear, we do a lot of suppressing. But our growth comes from, you know, that full range of emotions. We're going to hit the peaks, but we're also going to dive down into the darkness. It's not the problem that's the problem, it's how we deal with the problem. And then that leads on to the concept of the obstacle is the way. It's the tough stuff that leads to growth if we're courageous enough to deal with it and to let it bubble up and be seen and acknowledged. You know, it might be something from our childhood, or it might be the pain associated with not succeeding in our career or in a relationship or whatever. And it takes some courage to be totally honest about that. You know, I've struggled with a few things myself, my own sort of insecurities and how that plays out in my everyday life. I think I've been pretty good at going, well, yeah, okay, I recognise this now. I'm not sure what to do about it, but I recognise it and I'll work at it. It's tough, you know, sometimes you don't want to know that stuff. And I remember in a class, I was talking to kids about, in a relationship, you don't want to be a half circle and the other person's a half circle, and together you make a full circle and become whole. You want to be a full circle first, you want to be whole first. But then a student asked the question, so how do you know when you're whole? I said, well, maybe we don't actually get there, but I said at least let's be pointing in the right direction. We're doing the inner work, we're working towards that wholeness, so that we can be fully ourselves and alive, our higher selves. And everything in life that we experience is an experience, and it's our perception of it that makes it good or bad. And yeah, there are some really unpleasant and tragic experiences that we have that arts are not labelled as bad or uncomfortable, but the everyday stuff that happens to us, we sort of tend to put it into a category. If we can rethink our thinking a little bit and go, and change our perception, we might see it in a different way and go, yeah, that was really uncomfortable, but I've grown from that. And unless we allow ourselves to see it and feel it, then we might be stifling our growth.
Not only do you have experience as a teacher and a principal, but now you're a life coach. So I was curious if you had any common questions that might have come up in terms of the topics or the things that they're going through.
The most common thing with all of them is discovering who they are. You know, that self-awareness. And with every client that I've had, that's my aim. I try to sort of take them back to a point where they can figure out who they are, and that then is the foundation for making a lot of decisions. So for instance, I had a client who was in a relationship that wasn't sort of working. She was a bit confused about career. Was she on the right path? She was really good at writing down her goals. You know, she was meticulous with her goals and would tick them off. When I asked her about the life coaching, I said, what do you want out of it? She said, I want you to keep me accountable to my goals. Not once did I talk about her goals. I simply wanted her to understand herself better so that she could then make decisions for herself. She realised she didn't want to be in this relationship. She realised what she needed to do to get out of it. She realised her career path had to be steered in a different direction. Now, I didn't say to her at any point, you need to get rid of that partner, you need to choose this career. That's not my job, and I don't think it's any of our jobs really. It's about, all right, I want to hold up a mirror so you can identify who you truly are, and once you figure that out, then you'll arrive at these conclusions yourself. And it's been the same approach with all of my clients. It's just, you know, if you give a person a fish they can eat for a day, if you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. That, I guess, is what we possibly need to do with our teenagers too, is teach them how to fish so they can figure this stuff out for themselves instead of relying on someone to, you know, give me a fish, give me another fish, give me some more fish. And it's the same with all of my clients. You know, I've tried to teach them how to fish because I can't be around forever and I don't have all the answers. I don't have any of their answers. They already have their answers. I just have to help them find out who they are so that they can discover their own answers.
How do you help them guide them there?
It's human nature to say, oh, well, why don't you try this, why don't you do that? But it's about asking the right questions. You know, so how is that relationship going? You know, how do you feel when he doesn't ring you for 3 weeks, or you know, whatever? And so it's asking the right questions so that they can arrive at their own conclusions. The thing we often do wrong is we try and push our values. It's human nature, but it's particularly human nature for young people to go, no, you're so black, I'm going to say white, you know? and so we're doing it wrong. We've got the paradigm all wrong. Let's walk beside them and ask them the questions when they get in I had this boy who was in an altercation in the yard, wants to belt another kid, pulled him aside, I said, so why did you respond like that? And he goes, I was just angry. And so I kept asking him questions, and in the end he figured out where the anger came from. And there was some deeper personal family stuff that was driving his anger. It wasn't about the boy that owed him money. It was about the other stuff that was going on underneath. So again, it's about just asking questions, and he was a smart young man, and a lot of our kids are super intelligent. You know, they get it. So you just got to ask the right questions, and they go, yeah, I know where that comes from. I figured it out. I think it's about developing the ability to step away from our thoughts and our emotions and looking at it and go, righto, when that car cut me off in the traffic and I swore at them, tooted my horn and put my finger up, which I never do, by the way, or occasionally. But when that happens, you go, well, I don't even know that person that's just made me really angry. So where the hell did that come from? You know? And it's about stepping away and looking at it from a distance and trying to figure out why we behave in the way that we do. And you know, that's why it's important for us to realise that, you know, we aren't our thoughts. Like I had a client who said, look, I feel angry. She'd been through a unpleasant breakdown in a relationship, and she said, I want you to help me get rid of my anger. I said, well, it's an emotion. It's there for us to help us, you know, whether it's sadness, anger, whatever it is. We can't suppress it. We can't get rid of it. It's about understanding where it comes from. And in the end, we named her anger. And she gave it a name, and we sort of personified this thing. And she could look at it from a distance and go, look, I can see it coming. I can see him coming. You know, the name that she gave her anger. And so she was able to step back and identify when the anger came up. And then she identified ways of managing that anger that wasn't destructive to her or to anybody else. And she'd go for a walk, or she'd do some deep breathing, or she'd put on some nice music, or, you know, there were ways of dealing with the anger because she could see it coming. And that's really difficult to do all of the time, because sometimes we just go off, you know, and there's that reaction rather than response. Sadness is the same, and there's a great book by Thomas More where he talks about, and this is a tricky topic, but he talks about the gift of depression, and he says, ask it what it's teaching you, you know.
Yeah, I found personally as well, I found trying to understand where that sadness stemmed from helped me to move away from it, because I feel like once I resolved the issue of why it came up in the first place, I can understand myself better and the emotions. So it seems like what you're telling us is not only should we be compassionate as we're feeling emotions that we may not be most proud of in the moment, but also to see emotions as separate entities, to not attach thoughts as our being, but to just see them as things that come and go, like clouds.
Yeah, like clouds. I like that imagery. You know, to let them. There's some great gurus and sages who talk about our true self, that consciousness, that I am the being, the divine being, whatever we want to call it, is the thing that is unchanging. And regardless of our thoughts and emotions, it doesn't change. Identify those emotions and thoughts for what they are, as I think you said, as separate entities. If we can teach kids at our schools, particularly, or everybody, that we can observe them as objective, independent observers, then we can make more sense of them. It's about who's driving the bus. Is the true self driving it, or are our thoughts and emotions driving it? And if our thoughts and emotions are driving it, then we're just the passenger going on for the ride.
What sort of activities can we take upon ourselves on a daily basis, or thought processes, to ensure that we're moving in the right direction?
My own journey is probably an example of that. In my work as a teacher and educational leader, my life was so busy that, you know, I'd get up at 5 in the morning and I'd ask myself, do I go for a surf or a walk on the beach, or do I start reading my 150 daily emails? And I go, oh look, I better read my emails, because otherwise it's just going to pile up and up and up and up. And so it was a conscious choice, which was the wrong choice. Serious fatigue and stress. We can wait for a crisis before we change our way of life, and for a lot of people that's where the awakening moment happens, when you're in crisis. But I think as a culture we need to change our lifestyle to incorporate moments of reflection, so that we are developing different habits. I'm reading a book at the moment about the heart, and he's a cardiologist, and he operates on hearts. He used to see the heart as just a pump. And one day he realised that that's where the feeling is, that's where the soul is, and it sort of changed his whole perception of the heart. But the chapter I'm reading at the moment is how our stress actually damages the heart physically, not just the mental and emotional impact of stress, but physically it's damaging our heart, the lining, the valves, the whole bit. And we need to understand this more, so that our lifestyle is better.
What are some ways that parents can support their children and guide them in the right direction without pushing them away? Sometimes they might approach the conversation in such a way that child feel like the only way is to do the other opposite direction because it's not really, they don't agree with that statement perhaps.
Yeah, it's tricky, and look, parenting is hard, but, and I don't want to simplify it. They're smarter and more capable than we ever give them credit for. And I think the paradigm we operate under in this world is that because we are adults, they are the children, we know best and we will shape them in the way that we think is best. You can't give them your thoughts, you can give them your love. And basically saying, well, look, they're not yours, you don't own them. They are growing into exactly who they are meant to be. And so walking beside them, I think, is the answer. I do this meditation exercise in my class where we draw a small circle in the middle and then we draw the bigger circle on the outside, and we put all the external expectations and pressures and we rub that away and I go, okay, once we've got rid of all that external reality, what's left in the middle? And at years of age, to his hand, he says, "Sir, I think it's consciousness." And
13 years old.
13 years old, and I'm thinking, wow, and we as adults are trying to tell these kids what they should do and how they should think, and like, super intelligent and intuitive, and he's not an exception. The kids that I was teaching, there's a lot who are just so tuned in. It's easier for kids in some ways. Like as adults, you sort of get locked into a way of thinking, and it's harder to change. Yeah. Whereas they're still a bit raw and a bit grungy and a bit, they're still trying to figure it out. So they're more willing to go with the flow and absorb stuff like a sponge. But I was blown away, and his peers in the class is looking at me like, wow, you really come out of your mouth. So then we spend the next hour talking about, well, what is consciousness? What is this thing in the middle? Is it, what is the I am? What is the divine being that we are in deep within? Let's not underestimate their ability. My son's got a 5-year-old daughter who's just super intuitive and clever and just gets it. And they, as parents, sort of let her figure most things out for herself. If your kids are playing in a park and they're being rejected by other kids, do you run up and berate the parents of those kids, or do you let the kids figure it out for themselves? Kids will figure it out for themselves. They go, right, they're not playing with me because maybe I'm being a bit pushy and a bit nasty and a bit bossy. Maybe I need to moderate my behaviour so that I can, connect with these kids. And if you give them enough latitude or enough space, they'll work most of this stuff out. But the more we try to push our values or expectations on kids, my father used to always tell me how to vote. He'd say, make sure you vote blah 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 when you go to the polling booth. And you know what? I'd go, no, get stuff. I'm going to do the complete opposite, because I know that's going to annoy him, and I didn't tell him. So, but that's what we do, I want to be my own person. I don't want anyone to tell me how to vote. I don't want anyone to tell me how to think. I want people to challenge me. As a parent, we might say to our kids, "Do you think that was the right thing to do? What might be the consequences of it?" And because we're teaching them how to fish. Because one day the training wheels will be off. What good is it that we've controlled them and made decisions for them when we're not there anymore? The true test of our parenting is when they're out there by themselves and they can make good decisions because they've been given the space to make good decisions. And it's a beautiful quote by Richard Raw where he says, "We will learn to recover from falling by falling." And so he says we need to let kids fall. We need to all fall at times in order to learn the lesson. Now, of course, that doesn't mean let your kid run out in front of a car. That's it's not that.
Yeah.
It's allowing them to make decisions that you might think, well, it's not the best decision. Maybe you shouldn't buy that car because it's probably going to break down. Let them buy the car. Let it break down, and they go, yeah, okay, I need to do this differently. And so we can guide, we can ask the right questions, we can gently, not necessarily, if they ask for advice, by all means, but I think sometimes we're too forceful in our advice and our expectations.
What I've noticed when I was in university was the people around me who followed their parents' words word for word what happened was when it was time for them to make their own decision, they seemed to struggle or not really have a sense of direction because they didn't have the opportunity to figure things out for themselves. So I'd like to ask you one last question, Steve. What advice would you like to give other people that you wish more people knew?
The best thing we can do for people is respect their right to be who they truly are, and not to impose our expectations or our versions of them on who they are. And when you're talking about university students, this is quite a tragic story, but I have a friend whose daughter has recently graduated as a doctor, and out of her cohort, there's a number of the students tragically took their life, and I wonder what's behind some of that. You know, the pressure. Yes, they might have got an ATAR at school of 99 or 98 or whatever is required, but what else is going on there that has landed them in a place that created just so much stress and pressure that they possibly couldn't deal with? And I don't know all of the circumstances, but it obviously happens tragically from time to time. So I think it's about, especially when you're a parent or a teacher, never assume that what I'm imposing on them is right, or never assume that they're happy where they are, and just really to be present and to allow the individual to unfold into who they have always been. You know, and we hear that a lot now. Like we are who we are right from the beginning. We just get a bit lost and sidetracked and distracted.
Thank you for being a great example of that yourself and for bringing that guidance towards others.